Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. The good news is we originally talked about the B58 Gen 3 almost 2 years ago now, and we knew at that point that it was only available in the 7 Series and X7, but I kind of anticipated that it would roll down into the smaller models over time. And sure enough, this year we finally saw it get introduced to the M440i earlier this spring, and now it is finally being put into the M340i as well. So we're finally seeing the Gen 3 B58 and smaller chassis that a lot of enthusiasts really appreciate more. However, this engine has definitely been going through some growing pains, and it has a little bit of a bad record when it comes to warranty replacements and just overall reliability, even at less than 10,000 miles. And unfortunately, a lot of it has to deal with some of the upgrades that BMW put into the engine to make it more efficient and basically help them hit their targets. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about what we've seen so far and what you might come to expect if you buy a brand new vehicle with a Gen 3 B58, and just give you guys a little more information so you know what to look out for. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. So when it comes to the B58, we can definitely say that the Gen 1 and Gen 2 have set a new standard of reliability when it comes to BMW engines. And unfortunately, it seems like the Gen 3 just isn't quite stacking up. We're seeing some of these new cars come in for warranty repairs with less than 10,000 miles, which is definitely not what you would want to hear when it comes to the next generation of some of our favorite engines. So in this video, let's go ahead and go through some of the issues that people are experiencing and why these failures might be happening and what BMW might be doing to fix it. Now, before we jump into this too far, I do want to let you guys know that there is an Instagram account called The Specialist, and this is a BMW technician that posts up pictures of cars that he's working on and just different technical things about the engines that he's seeing in his shop. And he posted some really cool videos that detail how the different features in the Gen 3 B58 work. So I'm going to be referencing some of those videos in this video since it shows so much good detail, and definitely check out his page and give him a follow if you guys are interested in seeing more content like that. It's not all B58 related, but if you just like seeing internals of the engine and different things that people are fixing on modern and older BMWs, he definitely has quite a repository of videos that you guys can check out. So thank you to him for posting up some of these details and helping us understand it better. So when it comes to the B58 Gen 3, a lot of us were most excited to hear about one big thing being port injection. Now that you've got port injection from the factory, you have 6 additional injectors spraying into the intake manifold, which should support higher horsepower. Even in the future, if you hit the limits of it, you can just swap out the injectors with different aftermarket ones that flow more fuel. The sky's the limit when it comes to the fuel system. Now, that was really exciting to see, but from BMW's side of things, that wasn't the main purpose. And you'll kind of see a trend here. The reason why they added port injection is because that fuel can spray on top of the valves and help keep it clean to avoid carbon deposits. And this helps improve emissions and efficiency in the engine. And I think that the Gen 3, that was primarily their main goal. They have a lot of other additional upgrades and changes that they've made, but everything seems to be primarily for emissions and efficiency. So going in that direction, one of the things that they changed is the VANOS system. Now, I have a whole video that explains how VANOS works, so if you guys want more information on that, definitely go check it out. But basically, VANOS is variable cam timing, so it controls when the cams open and close the valves, and it has a variable adjustment so that it can open them earlier or later to help maximize power or fuel efficiency. Now they're converting this to an electronic control. So with the eVanos, instead of using oil pressure to manipulate the cam position, we are using an electronic servo motor that turns a gear inside of the cam, and that allows it to advance or retard the cam timing. Now, this is really nice to have for a couple different reasons. One, of course, is now you're no longer dependent on oil pressure to drive the VANOS system. So they can actually dial in the cam timing on cold start without waiting for oil pressure to build, and that can give you smoother cold starts as well as smoother auto start stop functionality. You also aren't going to see variables based on engine speed or oil pressure in general. So you'll always have the same amount of speed into the cam timing adjustment because you're not waiting for oil to basically prime the system or give you enough force to the VANOS so that you can quickly adjust cam timing. It also puts less demand on the oil, which kind of supports some of these longer oil change intervals we're seeing recommended from BMW, and just in general should help it last longer and maintain its viscosity for longer. Also with the servo motor, you're going to see faster and more accurate adjustments. And you can kind of see in this video here exactly how it works, where it basically is turning that internal gear inside of the cam gear, and that is adjusting the position of the cam relative to the timing chain. So that's what's advancing and retarding the cam timing. So it's a really nice, cool design, but it definitely adds some complexity that has some people concerned. The other feature is the exhaust valve deactivation, which I've been learning more and more about over time. And again, a big shout out to the specialist for posting up this video to show exactly how it works. But you basically have this slide that is on top of the rockers on the exhaust side of the cylinder head. And there is a motor on the side of it that looks like a Valvetronic motor. But from what I can see, it only really has two positions, open and closed. So it doesn't really vary. It basically engages or disengages the rocker based on the position of that slide. Now, when it is advanced, it basically disengages the rockers, and when the cams on the exhaust side are moving, it's not actually opening the valves. And what that does is it increases how much of the engine torque is transmitting into the mild hybrid system, which what we're seeing is pretty much all of the new Gen 3 B58 cars have a built-in hybrid technology. And so that allows the hybrid system to recharge more quickly instead of allowing the air just to flow through the cylinder head. So you're basically capturing that energy so that when you get back on the gas, you have better efficiency and you have that additional electric motor to reduce your gas mileage and emissions. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't fully wrapped my mind around that because it does seem like if the exhaust valves aren't opening, that's gonna create more resistance inside of the engine since, it's gonna be trying to compress the air in there and there's nowhere for it to go. Seemingly, you would basically want it just to be free revving, kind of like on our cars when you can see the alternator charging the battery when you're off the throttle. But considering some of the Gen 3 diagrams you see show that it actually doesn't have an alternator and basically relies on that hybrid electric system to power all of your accessories, I guess it makes sense that they want to prioritize as much of that charging to go into the hybrid system as possible. This also does explain why the B58 TU2 can make less power than the TU. With the Gen 3, if it's going to have the hybrid powertrain, then some of that electric motor power is going to be supplementing the engine power to keep things the same. So initially we thought there was going to be like a big reduction in horsepower for the M440i and M340i, but if you check BMW's website, you'll see it's basically the same horsepower now. Also, this only activates under 4,000 RPM. So if you were racing, for example, going full throttle at high engine speed, this isn't something that would be factored in. This is mostly something that just controls for, around town driving. Now, this is kind of where things start to come apart because pretty much all of the issues that I've seen and people have reported to me are dealing with the cylinder heads. And again, a big shout out to all of the mechanics and everybody that follows me and sends me pictures and videos and information of the cars they're working on, because this was definitely really insightful 2 years ago when you first started sharing them. I was hoping it would be just at that point, but apparently even now we're seeing some newer vehicles with the same issues. So one of the big ones that I've seen are the rockers being damaged. It seems like something with the cylinder deactivation just isn't 100% working well. So a lot of times they get damaged and that prevents the valves from opening and closing properly. We're also seeing some issues with the springs themselves. Some of the valve springs are actually popping out of position or breaking. And I've also seen some issues with the exhaust cam itself, where it's actually getting damaged or scratched up. And so what I'm seeing is some people are able to salvage the cylinder head and just replace some components and get you back on the road. But in some case, you need an entire cylinder head. And that was something that completely surprised me. When I saw a Gen 3 with the whole cylinder head removed and the engines hadn't even been out for 6 months, I was like, maybe those are just like a bad batch of parts, some growing pains when they first started making it. But now we're still seeing some issues with these cylinder heads on the Gen 3. So I don't know if that's something that eventually somebody will figure out, that we can like delete some of these features, especially on the exhaust cam. Getting rid of that might help because it's really for efficiency, not necessarily for horsepower or reliability. But time will tell if that's even an option. I think it would be nice if maybe in the future we saw somebody develop a kit that could disable the cylinder deactivation. maybe a mechanical kit that goes in place and locks it in position so that the exhaust valves are always engaged and you're always going to have them working. And that should hopefully avoid some of those issues where I don't know if they're experiencing valve flow or something that's causing the springs and the rockers to get damaged, but something in there just doesn't seem to be adequate. So that's what I've been seeing so far. The first one I saw was on a 7 Series and an X7, but now even with the specialists, we're seeing that an X5 was getting some cylinder head work as well. Now, like I said, the other issue we're seeing is with the exhaust cam getting scored. I don't know if this is related to the cylinder deactivation or the oil. Like we talked about, one change is now it is accepting 0W12, although I have seen bulletins where BMW was running low on 0W12 and told dealerships that if they didn't have it, they could use 0W20. So I'm assuming there are going to be more options, probably even 0W30 will meet the requirements for the Gen 3. And if that's an engine that you're buying and you want to move to a thicker oil, you should be able to find a thicker oil that meets even the BMW spec. Now, if that's something that you need to replace as soon as you get it, I can't really tell you. You know, it might not need to be like an oil change on your break-in service or whatever to switch it to a thicker oil, but, you know, it definitely seems like it could be an issue. So yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with. I've also seen some people say that they've had valve cover leaks at less than 10,000 miles. So a lot of little things, like I said, just kind of growing pains. This is the main reason why I like to wait when new technology and things are implemented, because you just never know what you're going to experience, even if everything is designed with the best intent. Once you get thousands or tens of thousands, or in the case of this B58, I'm sure there will be millions out in the field. It's just hard to get a good grasp of everything it's going to be able to experience and how to make sure those are addressed in the future. So if you don't have to buy a new car right now and you're not trying to get into a Gen 3 yet, maybe just give it a little bit of time, give it another year or so, and hopefully we get past all of these issues. And as always, you can check out some of the websites that actually document all of the recalls. What I like to do is just find a new car, take the VIN and submit it, and see what kind of recalls or active TSBs are out there. But for now, we'll just keep monitoring the state of things, and I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.